Welcome to deck analysis and testing. This time we're looking at BUJINs. BUJINs is a deck based around really mid boss monsters, but by using their Bujingi monsters from their hand or graveyard, they suddenly become a threatening boss monsters that have crazy amount of attack and are really hard to get rid of. Their boss monsters Susanoo is really good, but getting 2 level 4 monsters on field for BUJINs wasn't a very easy thing to do until now. Torifune is an inner archetype rescue rabbit, and Mahitotsu is a free summon that's actually good. By using them alongside BUJIN Carnation, the deck actually now has multiple ways to get materials on board, so even if your opponent stops one of them, you still have ways to keep comboing. Let's have a look at the cards. First is one of the new cards, BUJIN Torifune. This is, as I said, like a rescue rabbit for the deck. You can tribute this card to summon 2 BUJINs from a deck in the defense position with different types. And also, if you exceed summon a BUJIN monster, you can equip this card from your graveyard to that monster, and if that monster destroys anything by battle, it gets banished instead. The second effect is less good. You're usually using it as a 1 card rank 4 exceeds by just tributing it to summon this card, BUJIN Mahitotsu. This card is a free summon by sending one other BUJIN card from your hand to the graveyard, and also you can activate one of these 2 effects. You can either send a BUJIN from your hand to the graveyard to add one other BUJIN from your graveyard back to your hand, or you can banish one BUJIN from a graveyard to send a BUJIN from your deck to the graveyard with a different name. This is really good as both extension and also to get your stuff back from the graveyard, or to send stuff from a deck to your graveyard to use your other monster's graveyard effects. Next is a Bujingi Crane. This is a Bujingi monster that activates from your hand. So as a side note, the Winged Beast activates from your hand. So Crane is a Winged Beast, it activates from your hand. And Beast monsters activate from your graveyard. So Crane has the effect to send itself from your hand to the graveyard to double your BUJIN monster's attack during damage calculation only. And it is not once per turn, so if you have multiple Bujingi Cranes, you could use them multiple times. And even though it does say it doubles the amount of original attack, so even if you use 2 Cranes on the same monster in the same monster in the same damage step, the monster only gets the attack boost once because the original attack doesn't change. But you could use multiple copies of Crane in different attacks because your Xyz monsters attack multiple times, and for each attack you could use 1 Crane and boost its attack to really insane amounts. Next is Beast Bujingis. We first have the Orange Sword, I call it. You can banish itself from a graveyard to pop a face-up card. And then we have the Purple Sword, where you can banish it from the graveyard to boost your monster's attack equal to the amount of attack it's battling against, but your opponent takes half the damage only. This is like a less good version of Crane because it halves the battle damage, but it does allow you to beat over any monster, no matter how much attack they actually have. Next is 2 copies of Bujingi Fox. It's probably the most annoying card in the entire deck, because this card allows you to take no battle damage for the entire turn by banishing itself from the graveyard plus discarding a BUJIN monster. This is really good to stall and also to control the amount of life points you take from your opponent to trigger your destiny draw. Next is 3 copies of Bujingi Turtle. This is probably the best Bujingi to send to the graveyard because it is target protection. If your opponent activates an effect that targets your BUJIN monsters, you could banish from the graveyard to negate that effect. And this effect is not once per turn. That's why we're playing 3 copies, because it's nice to have multiple copies. It's the many, as many as we could send, and we could negate multiple effects in the same turn as well. And we have 3 copies of Tenki, of course, because Tenki is such as our best combo starter. And finally, we have 1 copy of BUJIN Carnation. This card could special summon 1 banished BUJIN monster and 1 monster in your graveyard, and then you cannot use them as an Xyz summon except for Xyz summon of a Beast, Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast type monsters, which we are playing plenty of them. And you can only activate this card if you control no monsters and your opponent controls a monster. So basically this card is only good turn 2, And you do need to have monsters in your graveyard and banish zone for this card to be good. That's why we're only playing one, and you will usually be getting this card as a follow-up using Destiny Draw. For the extra deck, we are playing a whole bunch of Xyz monsters. We're playing a bit of generic rank 4s, including Dark Rebellion and the Dreadnought package with Great Magnus. And for the Bujintes, we're playing 3 copies of Susanoo. This is probably the best Bujin Xyz monster that we could make. This only needs 2 Bujin monsters, and it can attack all opponent's monsters once each. And also you can detach one to add a Bujin from your deck or send it to the graveyard. It does everything, basically. And we have a copy of Tsukiyomi. This is probably a good monster to make turn 1, but usually I'll still make the Susanoo instead, because it's just search this card is probably a bit better than what Tsukiyomi does. This card could detach one to send your entire hand to the graveyard and then draw 2 cards. And also, if this card leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you could target level 4 Beast Warrior type Bujin monsters in graveyard up to the number of Xyz material discard hand in field and revive those monsters. Next is Bujinki Amaterasu. I never summoned this card, but it's just nice to have in your extra deck. And for the skill, we're playing D-Draw. Because of our really annoying Bujinki Fox, we could really control the amount of damage we take from our opponent, and D-Draw allows us to get the best follow-up card in the entire deck, which is Bujin Carnation. This summons 2 cards for entirely free, without using your normal summon like Torifune. So by using Bujin Carnation as the first thing you do after you take damage from your opponent, you could set up a Xyz monster, and even if your opponent tries to disrupt it, you can just use your normal summon to summon Torifune and just make another Xyz monster. So that's basically how the deck would play. This is kind of the expensive version because like a lot of the other archetypes in the new deck building box, they have a lot of the cards that the deck already needs, and you don't really need cards from other boxes. It kind of already has everything. And also, coincidentally, all 3 archetypes that the box has don't really need staples. So like Lunalights and Bujins and Fire Fist, they are sufficient just by using the cards in their archetypes themselves. So for the expensive version, you'll probably just replace some of the generic Xyz with better generic Xyz, and that's gonna kind of be it. But one really good thing about the new box, I think, is that you don't really need a lot of the other expensive stuff for the decks that it features to work. So with that said, let's have a look at the replays. Our first game, we are going second. This deck does actually prefer going second because Susanoo is such a good OTK tool. But even if we go first, it's not that big of a deal because Bujinki Fox does control the amount of damage we take. As you can see, we are playing Centipede in this version because I was testing out this card before I decided to add 3 copies of the turtle. So we are going to have Centipede in our hand, but later I realized that it's probably better to have turtle instead because Centipede pops as trigger effect, so it's not a quick effect. It's going to be better if it's a quick effect, but because it's not, I just figure it's better to have a target protection, so if your opponent tries to activate a backup, we can just negate that instead of preemptively popping it. So that's why I didn't use Centipede in the final version. Our opponent is playing S-Force, and they have a specimen that they could activate in response to our Centipede pop. So he will be able to summon a monster, but we will still be able to normal summon Torifune, summon 2 from our deck, including 1 turtle and 1 crane, and we will use the effect of the Mahitotsu to send the yellow sword, and then we're gonna make our Susanoo, which we'll be able to grab ourselves a crane to our hand, so we can just beat over anything our opponent has. Our opponent activates MST, which is fine, doesn't really matter. We could crane to boost our own monster's attack so we can deal a whole bunch of damage, but it's still not lethal, but it should be fine. Our opponent is going to normal summon their best normal summon, which is Rappa Chiyomaru, and then they're going to summon a Lapswell to pop Susanoo, and then make the link again from the graveyard, and then clear our board, but that's okay, we still have plays. We're going to normal summon our Torifune, he's going to try to negate with his link, we will negate his link, so he doesn't resolve. We'll activate Torifune's effect successfully, and on resolution, he is going to activate Chase to bounce back the monsters to our hand. We could still make Mahitotsu to at least grab back the Torifune for next turn, but we will have to end turn right now. Our opponent can pop our monsters. I don't really mind that because we have the Fox in our graveyard. We will purposely let him attack us for one hit, and then we will use Fox to block the other hit. And then, because our opponent hit us once and reduces our life points, we could activate BUJIN Carnation by getting it with D-Draw, and then we're going to summon back the Turtle and the Crane, and we'll make another Susanoo. And we'll use the Torifune's Graveyard effect to equip, I guess, because why not? He is going to MST our Torifune, but I don't think it does anything. We're going to grab Crane using Susanoo and then beat over everything he has. He's going to move his zone, but it doesn't really do anything because it'll boost our own monster's attack and deal well over lethal. In our next game, we are playing against, I don't know what we're playing against. We are going first, however, so we are going to basically show you what I'm going to try to attempt to do turn 1. It's basically the same thing, but we're gonna have to have a Fox in the graveyard so we don't die. So we're still gonna normal summon Torifune and then put 2 monsters on field to make the Susanoo. We're gonna always try to get as many turtles in the graveyard as possible, so we're going to detach a turtle to grab another turtle. And the reason why we're grabbing turtle instead of sending it to the graveyard is because we could send it to the graveyard with the Fox engrave. That's why I added to the hand instead. Our opponent is playing Tenyi's, it turns out to be. He is going to summon a whole bunch of Tenyi monsters, and I think he's trying to go for lethal, but we are not afraid of him going to lethal because we have Fox in the graveyard. He is going to spin our monsters, and we will let him, even though we could negate it with Turtle, because I don't really mind. I'd rather have another Turtle in the graveyard in case he has some amount of set back row, so we could still play around those cards. Our opponent will summon back the Ayazi, and he is going to play around D-Draw, which is a smart move, but we still have 1 card starter. He's trying to bounce it back. We have the turtle for this, so we will negate his compulse, so we can still activate the effect of Torifune. But before we do that, we're going to summon the Mahitozu first, and then use Torifune's effect to summon the turtle and the crane, and then use Mahitozu's effect to grab back the Torifune for next turn, if we even have a next turn. We're going to Susanoo grab a crane, obviously, and we're going to attack his monsters. We're going to crane once, deal a whole bunch of damage, and then attack again. And he is going to lance this, but it's fine. Crane will return it to its original attack times 2. So even if its attack gets lowered, it still gets to 48, no matter how many attack it gets reduced. In our third game, we were playing against Blue Eyes, and again, going first, and our opponent will be playing Blue Eyes Dimension. We do have Torifune, so let's see what we can make from this position. We're going to still grab turtle even though we already have 2 in hand, because more turtles doesn't hurt. There's no such thing as too many negates. We will use Susanoo's effect to grab Crane, I guess, because we already have Torifune and turtle in hand. He's going to activate his skill to grab himself a regular Blue Eyes, and then he's going to reveal the Blue Eyes to summon an alternative. And we could negate the alternative, but we won't, because again, we don't really care if he clears our board, because we have Fox in graveyard. He is going to summon back the Abyss Dragon, which will allow him to grab a Chaos form to his hand, but I don't think he will ever have an opportunity to use it. He's going to normal summon Blue Eyes and go to battle. We'll let him attack us once, just like last time, and then we'll use Bujingi Fox to block the remainder of his attacks. He's going to grab Chaos Max at the end phase, but we will be winning this game right now. We're going to use D-Draw to grab ourselves BUJIN Carnation. We don't actually need BUJIN Carnation because we already have Torifune in hand, and he doesn't have a way to disrupt us anyway, but I guess because we have D-Draw, so why not? We're going to summon Susanoo to grab ourselves another Crane, and then we're going to try to walk over everything our opponent has. But before we do that, we're going to Torifune to summon another 2 monsters to make Dark Rebellion, Xyz Dragon, and then we're going to reduce our opponent's monster's attack so we can beat over the first one without using a Crane. Our opponent will have a Deep Eyes, but I'm pretty sure he would have won if he waited for me to attack into another monster, because if he has another dragon engraved, he could deal 600 more damage and that would win him the game, but I guess Blue Eyes players are just Blue Eyes players, and we will take this win.